Well, it's that time again. It's week two on the tube. Welcome back to the bottom line with Dorazio and Ben Willey. It's December 27th. Ben, before we get into our sports talk, how was your Christmas, my man?
Oh man, it was a lot of ups and downs. I will say Christmas Eve was more of my family's Christmas, so that was quite a fun day. We go out to lunch usually every year with my family, and then we went to a movie actually, National Lampoons. I know we've had a lot of talks about Christmas movies, and that's one of our favorites. We went to a movie, and then we just came back and did gifts with my family. So Christmas Eve was a great one. And oh yeah, I forgot to mention my Dolphins, which we will talk about. That was a great Christmas gift. And then Christmas Day was like kind of a weird day because I got sick a little bit in the morning, so
Oh no.
I was kind of out of it for the first half of the day. But I was able to get to a good enough point to enjoy the rest of the day. So it was a pretty fun day. I can't complain honestly.
Yeah, I'm happy you're feeling a bit better. I had a good Christmas as well. The Birds got a win, maybe not in the fashion I wanted to, but hey, when you're on a losing streak, a win's a win. So I'll take it. Obviously, we'll get into that a little bit later. I got myself a
Yeah.
Smitty Kelly Green jersey, Devontae Smith jersey, so that was great. And Ben, I can't believe you didn't talk about this. Now I have a little bit of insight to the Willie family, just being how close we are. You said you just
Yeah.
went out to lunch. I think you need to elaborate a bit more. Like, where was this lunch at? Because it was at like a grand, fancy, top-notch restaurant. Am I right?
Yeah, so my family does this. My dad has this whole tradition with his. It's a long story. I'm not gonna give everyone the whole story, but there's an actual reason behind this. But yeah, my family does go to Long John Silver's for lunch every Christmas Eve.
I love
Now,
it.
where we're from, the Long John Silver's also has a KFC in it. So usually for the most people, they usually get the KFC because I feel like Long John Silver's is a very acquired taste. So a lot
I
of
would
people
agree with
get
that.
KFC. So, yeah, it's not completely crazy. I promise it's there is a reason behind the madness.
Hey, I respect it. My family we do a seafood thing on Christmas Eve. It's all home cooked, but I'm not gonna hate. I'm not gonna hate my girlfriend's family. They do Chinese. Everyone has their own thing, and you gotta
Yeah.
embrace it. You gotta embrace it. But we'll get all that rigmarole out of the way. Let's go right into the headlines because, and by the way, guys, we're making upgrades because watch this. Boom. I know it's not high quality, but we're taking steps in the right direction. Like I said, this is two collegiate guys who are not tech savvy running this thing. So baby steps, right, Ben? We're gonna get there slowly but surely. But hey, nothing like a good old graphic on the screen, am I right?
Yeah, it'll probably be like each and every week you'll just see this, the maybe a small upgrade and maybe some will be more noticeable than others, but we're like you said, it's kind of baby steps for us, just 1 week at a time.
I want to just put everybody back to last week. And if you didn't watch the last week's show, and also if you aren't already, like and subscribe. We're already building this audience. We want to keep building it. So help us out, like and subscribe. But last week on this show, I'm not gonna toot my own horn, but man, I predicted the headlines, man. Rudolph saves Christmas. I said it last week, and it came to fruition. And I can't believe how impressive of a victory this was. I know you're typically a Steelers hater on this program, but I'll be
Yeah.
damned if you don't give some props because this was just not the Steelers escaping with a win. This was dominance, Ben. I will not accept any other answer other than that.
Yeah, this was probably the best quarterback play we've seen this year from a Steelers quarterback, and probably of all the names that I would have guessed to be it from, it wouldn't have been Mason Rudolph. I'll be honest on that one. And this was just an impressive game. I mean, I think the big storyline here was Mason Rudolph to George Pickens, but honestly, we got to give props to the whole team. I mean, they played really well, and this Cincinnati team has found some identity late in the season, and they've kind of rallied behind Jake Browning more than we thought they would probably. But I mean, this was a dominant win from start to finish. I mean, you only hold Cincinnati to 11 points, and the Steelers score over 30 points. I mean, that's a recipe for success if you're a Steelers fan. So I mean, I was pleasantly surprised, even though I am a Steelers hater, to see this because this was a bit of fresh air for the Steelers.
Yeah, I mean Jake Bryan, like you said, he's been kind of been on a roll. This was not just like a typical Jake Bryan performance. This was the first time a defense really shut him down. But like you said, I think the real story here is Mason Rudolph, who as a starter has always been pretty good. If you look at his numbers, over 500 as a starter, he always gives you a shot to win. He usually won't lose you a game. He might not win it. This case, he did
Right.
win the game. But yeah, the Pickens Rudolph connection was on point, which is kind of ironic because going to this week, George Pickens was kind of getting crapped on in the media for not blocking, and people were questioning his character. And then he comes out and does this. That's a huge bounce back performance for Pickens. And overall, just a great win by the Steelers. But yeah, I thought it was funny. Everyone was just on First Take, Undisputed. All the sports medias, they're all just slamming George Pickens. And he comes out and does that, who, by the way, he was on your bench in fantasy, Ben. Just want to remind you that. JD
Yeah,
happily
yeah, I
moving on to
don't
the championship.
Yeah, I don't need any friendly reminders of that one. I literally thought about it too because it's so weird with with George Pickens is he always has these random breakout games where he shows flashes of just being an incredible receiver, but it's not consistent enough. And I should have known he was due for a big game. But yeah, I mean, that unbelievable response. I mean, the media was criticizing him all week and talk about playing with a chip on your shoulder.
100%. And now the Steelers, I mean, back against the wall, they were slumping, and now they're just right back into the mix of the playoff standings in the AFC, which is just a whole nother mess in itself, which we'll get into a bit later on. But any last thoughts here? I mean, this isn't the end of the road for Cincinnati. They can very much well bounce back, but now they kind of just the Steelers were kind of closing the door, then Cincinnati kind of just cracked it back open with this loss. Now it's just going to be a harder path for Cincinnati to make the playoffs.
Yeah, this was more of a must win for Pittsburgh than it was Cincinnati, but both teams really wanted this one. You could just tell. And I think Pittsburgh just kind of answered the call better.
Yeah, 100%. So we'll move on here. We'll see. Okay, good. It does work. So our next game, Bills at Chargers, and no one's probably going to be surprised with the result. I mean, you see on your screen now 24-22, but this was a lot closer of a game that should have been. I didn't get to watch this game live. I did watch the highlights. But quite frankly, I don't know if you agree with me, Ben. This is a game probably the Chargers should have won. And you
Oh,
know what the Chargers
100%.
and you know what the Chargers are going to do in games that they're supposed to win. They will lose. And I have it on the
Yeah.
screen there, Ben. The floor is yours. What needs to be said?
I mean, this is one of our favorite sayings. I know it's been said all across the world, but this is one of our favorite sayings on this show. I mean, it's true. Chargers are always going to charger. They just find weird ways to lose games, and even in this game, like you said, they were the better team. I watched most of this game. I kind of was turning it off and on, but they looked like the better team. I mean, this was the best game I've seen out of Easton Stick, which granted is a small sample size. I'll be honest, but the Chargers gave them a real run for the money, and Buffalo's been a red hot team. And I mean, I could not believe like Chargers gave them the kitchen sink. I mean, they really did, but it just felt like even when they were playing better, just found a way to lose. And that sounds like the same story we've been saying for the last 5 years.
Yeah, this was one of those weird just Gabe Davis pop-off games where he either gets 0 yards or like 200. He had 130 yards and a tutty in this one. But yeah, I mean, the Bills just kind of they weren't bad by any stretch. I think people were just expecting to be more impressive. Like if you look at the stat sheet, you're gonna be like, oh wow, they played abysmally. Like everything looks respectable, but given the opponent, you probably expected a little bit more. This is kind of a team where you don't want to keep them in it, even though with the Chargers track record, you probably do want to keep them in it. You're probably still gonna be okay, but just given the level of opponent, this is not a team that should have came down to the wire. The Bills didn't look awful, but given how they're kind of on the rise and now they're starting to make a little bit noise in the AFC, I think people were expecting kind of a statement victory. This was by no means a statement victory, but that being said, it still was a victory nonetheless. And again, with this AFC race, any way you can get is a win. It's still the NFL at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, like we always talk about too, is I mean, a win is a win. So you can't, if you're walking away with W's every week, it should not matter what the scoreboard says, but it is still just an eyebrow raiser. It makes you a little queasy. It just doesn't make you feel as good about the win, but it still counts all the same. So I mean, I can't really complain, especially if you're a Buffalo fan. But like you said, it just was a little off-putting. And I mean, this has kind of been a pattern for Buffalo, is they usually do a little bit worse on the road. They're more of a home field team, and there are definitely teams in the NFL that do that, but Buffalo is one of those, probably top three, top five home teams that you can notice just a noticeable difference when they're at home or on the road.
Oh, easily. I think given just the elements of Buffalo, that just elevates that to a whole nother level.
Yeah, I mean Buffalo fans. I mean Bills Mafia is one of one. I mean they are special. Maybe not the best fans in football, but they are definitely there is no fans like them.
Yeah, that's for sure. If there's any plastic tables that are near us right now, you might want to watch yourself because there might be a Bills fan just getting ready to go right through the table. So, I do want to get your opinion on one thing really quick, Ben, because I saw this on First Take. I think it was Dan Orlovsky. And he's saying, and I really don't agree with this, but he's saying, given how a certain someone plays, and we're going to get to that certain someone who's now the new MVP frontrunner, but he thinks Josh Allen is creeping up in second place in the MVP race and can potentially, how he plays in the last week, can overtake and win the MVP, which I think's not possible at all given how their season's going, even if he just balls out the last 2 weeks. I don't think there's any way where Josh Allen wins the MVP this year. That's just me personally. I want to hear your take on that real quick.
Yeah, I think there's too many ups and downs. I think your real MVP candidates right now are got to be guys that have kind of kept it steady enough. Maybe not they've been good entirely, but they really haven't had a true, down slump. The Bills at one point were in dark times a couple weeks ago, and they found stride at the end of the season, and props to them. But I just don't think you can consider a guy an MVP when they lost games to, what they lose to the Patriots. They lost games to Denver. They lost games to, this just not, it's not just MVP type stuff. And I believe he's still leading the league in turnovers or interceptions, and granted the yards and the touchdowns, kind of balance that out a little bit, but it still matters. And I don't know. I think it gives a little bit of discredit to guys like Lamar and Christian McCaffrey and Purdy and goes like guys like that. It just gives them a little bit of discredit for what they're doing for their squads.
Yeah, I agree. I don't really have a whole lot to add there. I mean, I pretty much second. I just don't really think he's a true contender given how his season has gone. A team that I do want to talk about, and I really messed up the slide on this one, so my apologies. But the Falcons. I mean, I kind of thought their road has sailed, especially going against a really hot Indianapolis Colts team. But they just absolutely balled out and got a big time victory against an opponent, like I said, who's been playing some of the best football all year in the Indianapolis Colts, and they once went pretty handily. The scores accidentally cut off. My apologies on that. But they won 29-10. And this was with Taylor Heineke as the starter. And just given how he's played, you kind of wonder what the Falcons' record would be if Heineke's been the starter all year long, because the Falcons just looked like a way better team in all three phases. It was a true good, complete team performance where they got Bijan involved, Kyle Pitts. I think even Drake Lynn had a solid game. Like, he was spreading the ball around. It was good. And you finally saw what this Falcons team is capable of when they put the pieces together. And Ben, you've been riding the Falcons wave all year, and you're probably watching this game and thinking like, yes, this is what I've been waiting for. Where has this been all year long? Am I right with that thinking?
Yeah, I see the potential there, and we talk about this even off air. There's just something about this team that I feel like they're just like if they put the pieces together, as you said, it just doesn't seem like they're that bad of a team. They have the talent on both sides of the ball. It just seems, whether it's Desmond Ritter just throwing away games, or whether it's Arthur Smith refusing to use his playmakers, or it's the defense that has an occasional down week. There's always something happening wrong, and they've just been kind of riding the 500 wave, either one game above, one game back, maybe identically 500. It just seems like you can never really get a good tabs of what this team is. But this was an impressive win against, one of the hottest teams in football. You could arguably say that the Colts were the team of November. So, what an impressive win.
And right now, I mean, the Falcons are they're a game back of the last wild card. Seattle has it 8-7. If the Falcons are 7-8, um, but I feel like the Falcons, if they're going to path, it's going to have to be in the division. And the only problem is they're starting to slip behind. I mean, well, actually, not really. The NFC South isn't that good. The Bucks have the lead at 8-7, or yeah, 8-7. Falcons right there at 7-8. The Saints right there at 7-8. It's still. I feel like every week we're still saying the same thing because all these teams are just so even. I do think the Bucks are starting to pull away just in terms of the eye test of who's the best team in that division. We'll be talking about the Bucks here just in a few minutes. But I mean, the Falcons can finish the year off like this and go 9-8. 9-8 might be enough to win that division. It might be enough to even snag that last playoff spot, depending how these other teams play. But now they're kind of in the spot where they need help. They had their chance to control their own destiny. They blew that chance, and now they're in a spot where they need help. But given how weak the NFC is this year, it's still very much possible that we see this Falcons team make the playoffs. And if the Falcons can put it together in the playoffs, we saw against the Colts what they can do. And I understand it's Gardner Minshew, but that Colts defense is no joke, and the Colts are a really tough football team to beat.
Very well coached team, and as you talked about, we if we want to give Gardner Minshew praise a couple weeks ago, we've got to, we can't use it against him when someone beats him. I mean, he's still a solid guy, and he's been playing well. So I mean, we can't just discredit the Falcons now. I mean, that they still deserve some props.
No, 100%. So we'll see what the Falcons keep doing, and we'll see if they can potentially make a postseason run. Well, this was such an awesome story here with the Detroit Lions on Christmas Eve. This was actually a really great game as well, against division rivals Minnesota. These games are always so close. These NFC North games, seems like whoever it is, it's always very competitive. Detroit got the best of this one, 30-24, but I mean, just to see the Lions sealed up and clinch the division, I'm so happy for that fan base. I'm so happy for Dan Campbell. Did you see the NFL posted something about Dan Campbell's locker room speech? I mean, it was just almost gave me chills just to see the pure excitement and passion as he was delivering that speech. It was beautiful. It was really awesome.
I didn't actually see the speech, but I will definitely have to look it up because I mean, I am a big fan of Dan Campbell. I feel like everyone in the United States probably is a fan of Dan Campbell. Just what a likable team, what a likable, just everything about this team just is good vibes. I feel like no one's rooting against them. And, this is what I saw coming in the preseason, and I'm glad it came to fruition because you could see the signs. I mean, this team has been building up, from the ground up the past couple years, and it just seemed like they had a good enough squad to get it done. And they put the pieces together, and now, for the first time in a long time, Detroit gets to host a playoff game, and that's going to be, I mean, that's just going to be a fun game to watch. I imagine the viewership for that is going to be insanely high, and the stadium's probably going to sell out. I mean,
Oh,
what a
easily, no doubt
yeah,
about it.
what an excellent time to be a Detroit Lions fan. I mean, I mean, this was just a good game, and as you said, in these NFC North games, it's it doesn't always have to be pretty, but that's NFC North football, and the Lions have kind of found a way this year to win those tough games that they used to lose all the time. I mean, it was always the same old Lions, but now they're finding ways to win them.
And this was pretty much a typical Lions performance, at least from an offensive standpoint. This is what Dan Campbell wants. Jared Goff, just 250 yards, one tutty, no interceptions, though. So if Jared Goff can just have a stat line similar to that, the rest will do its own because the Lions' running game is so good. I mean, this one, Gibbs had 15 carries for 80 yards. Montgomery, 17 carries for 55 yards. They combined for 3 touchdowns. So as long as Jared Goff can game manage and keep the Lions in it, the running game's going to take them as far as they can possibly go because that's been the identity of this team ever since Dan Campbell took it over. And Jahmyr Gibbs had a really slow start to the year, and he has just blossomed in the second half. I mean, that's a trend we see very frequently with these early picked running backs in their rookie year. They usually start slow and build their way up. And now he's just playing some incredible football. You see why the Lions wanted him in their scheme. He fits it so well, and he's playing incredible football, and he pairs so perfectly with David Montgomery. I mean, talk about just like fire and ice in terms of how different they are and how they mesh so well together. Like peanut butter and jelly. I guess fire and ice really didn't make any sense given the analogy. I think peanut butter and jelly is a much better one, but they pair together so well. And this Lions offense looked really good. What's a big concern about the defense? I mean, he lost, but I mean, credit to Nick Mullins. He played an absolutely incredible game. I think this game, well, maybe not incredible. He did throw 4 picks, but he kept his team in. He threw for over 400 yards. I mean, they really didn't get the running game going. I mean, the Vikings rushed for 17 yards in this one. 17. If you have Nick Mullins as your starter, you got to give him more than 17 rushing yards to work with to win. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, I mean, he is what, the third string quarterback or fourth string quarterback for this team. So
Well,
like,
I mean, I think for the fourth, technically, because you had
yeah,
Kirk, you had Dobbs, and you had
Jaron
one other
Hall.
guy. Yes, Hall. Thank you. Yeah, so fourth.
Yeah, I mean, so you've gone through three quarterbacks, and now he's the fourth. And like you said, you're only giving him 17 rushing yards, so he's kind of having to be a gunslinger. And he's not Josh Allen, he's not Patrick Mahomes, he's Nick Mullins, and that's no shade at Nick Mullins, but he's not that guy. So you gotta, everything has to kind of go well, and you have to play a much better, clean game to cover up for him being the fourth string quarterback, and they didn't do that. And if they did, they probably would have won this game.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the Lions they were the first team now to clinch a division spot. So, I mean, they're still in the mix for the number one seed. You got 3 teams now tied: the Niners, the Eagles,
Well,
and
I
the
think
Lions.
I think San Fran might have clinched their division. I
Oh,
don't know
yes,
about
you
that.
are right. You are right. I did
Okay.
forget about San Fran. Yes, good call there. So you have those 3 teams at the top with the Lions and the 49ers clinching their division, and the Eagles are tied. So the Niners still control their own destiny, but hey, all it takes is for a slip up from the Eagles and Niners, which is very much so possible. And the Lions, they still have a shot at being the first seed in the NFC, which is something we talked about earlier, which we didn't think would be a possibility. But now it's starting to creep back into our minds a little bit. It's pretty fascinating stuff.
Yeah, I love these final like 2 to 3 weeks of the season. There's like 70 million different scenarios where if this team beats this team and if this team loses to this team, it's just what a fun time for football.
Fun time for football, 100%, Ben. We forgot to make a graphic for this one, so I'm just going to throw it back on this for now. But I want to talk about the Kansas City Chiefs game here real quick, briefly, because we didn't make a graphic for it. So I want to talk about it now before we get too far into the graphic slideshow. But this was on Christmas Day last year, and I was at my uncle's house, who's a big time Chiefs fan. And just the overall performance from the Chiefs was just shocking to see how they play this game, how they ended up losing this game to the Las Vegas Raiders. Nobody saw this one coming. At least I didn't. The Raiders win 20-14, even though their offense only did not score an offensive touchdown. I mean, the Raiders defense just gave Patrick Mahomes nothing to work with. Kelsey, he's been a non-factor. The Chiefs offense just looks bland. I can't believe we're saying this in the year 2023. Ben, what's going on in Kansas City?
I just think they're just kind of I don't know. There's a lot of problems. I think the O line isn't doing what they used to do for Mahomes, and I know Mahomes is a playmaker, but now it seems like the occasional Patrick Mahomes play where he has to scramble out and throw across his body is becoming almost an every play thing. His receivers are not getting open. Kelsey's having a bad year, so when you don't really have to worry about Kelsey as much, it kind of makes the rest of the receivers who already aren't that good to begin with even worse. I mean, there's the play calling has just gotten kind of bland. They're not really doing anything creative like they used to. It just seems to me like they need a hard reset. And I think the potential is still there. I mean, it's still the Chiefs, it's still Andy Reid, it's still Patrick Mahomes, and it's still Travis Kelsey. They just got to figure it out. And I don't know if it'll happen this year. I mean, for Chiefs fans, I hope it does. For me as a Dolphins fan, I hope it doesn't. But besides that, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of they just need a quick reset, I think.
And I think Patrick Mahomes is so used to that superstar level of play where things aren't going his way, where the offense isn't flowing. He tries to maybe do a little too much, tries to
Right.
create magic when there's nothing there, and that causes the mistakes where they threw back-to-back turnovers, um,
In
a,
7 seconds.
a scoop and score, and then a pick six on back-to-back offense possessions. Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. That's all the Raiders needed. They scored 2 field goals offensively. I mean, their starter at one point he had 10 straight incompletions. Ian O'Connell, he finished the game 9 for 21. I think that he only had maybe 3 or so completions in the second half. I can fit him on one hand. I know that for sure. He had 62 yards. He had 62
Yeah.
yards and they won, Ben. 62 yards. And you know what was even a bigger story? We talk about the Chiefs defense being so good in the fourth quarter at home when you knew the Raiders were going to run the ball. All of a sudden, they could not stop the run. Zamir White, not Josh Jacobs, Zamir White had 22 carries for 145 yards, averaging
Yeah.
6.6 yards a rush. I mean,
Yeah. I mean, if
it's weird, man, because we're used to just seeing the Chiefs just we've seen it in years past where the Chiefs kind of just slump their way to the playoffs and they still have an incredible record. This is not the
right.
same. They're 9-6, but it just feels different that this is a different kind of mediocrity of play from the Chiefs that we've seen in years past.
Yeah, if there's one thing I will say is I think this is the identity that Vegas is okay with. I mean, this is Raider football, smash mouth football, get in your face. They'll run the rock and then they'll play defense. I mean, I will say that this is probably the type of the style that the Raiders want to play if they want to be a real, competitive team. You probably want to see a little bit better out of their
If if
passing game.
if Pierce does not get rehired, that's an absolute crime. If you talk about a guy that
Well, they
just
did
fits
this
the
last
Las
time too.
if you want a guy that just embodies the Las Vegas Raiders, I mean, look no more further.
Yeah, I mean, this guy is I mean, like we talk about, you gotta match your culture of your team, and Antonio Pierce matches it, and we saw the last time they had an interim head coach, he was kind of in the same thing, a little bit different, but definitely the same idea where it just they really embodies Raider football, and they didn't rehire him, and I hope they learn from their mistakes and at least give him a shot because he deserves it, and this team has looked night and day different since he's been hired.
9 day different, and again, look what he's working with. I mean, the top outside Devonta Adams, the top two important people in this offense. Devonta Adams was a non-factor. Then you have Josh Jacobs was hurt, and again, he has Ian O'Connell as his quarterback. So if if he can, no disrespect to O'Connell, but I mean, we don't even know what he can do with a proper team, at least from an offensive standpoint.
Yeah, you'd like to see him get a shot with like a real team, a much more formidable team. At least let him build his own team. At least let him decide who his quarterback is. Let him decide his offensive and defensive play callers. Like let him build a team and see where it goes. I mean, that's my opinion.
We'll wrap this up real quick. For me, I'm not rolling out the Chiefs. I've seen this story one too many times where everyone thinks, oh, the Chiefs are done, and then they just turn it on like that. But I'll say this is the most fragile and weak the Chiefs have looked in the Mahomes era, no doubt about it. That being said, they're still more likely going to win their division. That means they will host at least one playoff game at Arrowhead. It looks like now they've kind of distanced themselves from the top two teams in the AFC. It looks like they're kind of now the third team, at least in terms of rankings. So they're probably going to host one playoff game at Arrowhead. But again, this team has a ton of playoff experience. It's so hard to bet against Mahomes in a playoff setting. So I'm not ruling him out completely. It would not shock me at all if the Chiefs just run the table in the playoffs. It wouldn't shock me because we've seen it so many times. Um, but I will say this is the most weak they've looked. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, red flags are being waved all over.
So we'll move on here. Let me jump back up in our slideshow. All right, beautiful. What? Oh man, I've been waiting for this one, Ben. Me and my dad kind of an ongoing joke with just what's going on with Joe Flacco. We're calling it Flacco Mania. I mean, where do we start here? First of all, just the Cleveland Browns are genuine AFC threats. I do want to start with that because it's very much so the case. I mean, this team just looks super dangerous right now, and they did this against the Houston Texans defense, which has been rather solid all year long. I really wish we could have saw Joe Flacco in a Cleveland Browns uniform for the entire year because right now with his splits, he's on pace to break the all-time pass yards in a season and the all-time pass touchdowns in a season if he had a 17 game pace, which is just a crazy statement. But Flacco is just playing some of the best football of his career right now, and that includes a Super Bowl MVP run. Back with the Ravens. I don't know where to start. My head's all over the place just with this Browns story. They're probably my favorite team that I'm rooting for in the AFC. I'm sorry, Ben, it's not your Dolphins, but this is just too good of a story to pass up what Joe Flacco's doing. I mean, the Flacco to Cooper connection was on fire. Mark Cooper over 200 yards, 2 tutties. I mean, I'm at a loss for words at this point. I could not believe what I was watching on my television screen on Christmas Eve. It was beautiful. It really was. Almost brought a tear to my eye, Ben. A tear to my eye.
Yeah, this Cleveland team is like scary, and it's not. I want to say it's surprising. It's kind of is, kind of not. I mean, we saw the potential with this defense. I mean, this defense has always been elite. They have been for a couple years now, and it always felt like they were a quarterback away. And there was talks of whether it was Baker was the guy or was he not the guy. And they moved on from him and they got Deshaun Watson, and you never really saw the flashes of old Deshaun Watson, and they cycled through guys. They had DTR in for a little bit, and they cycled in. I believe there was another guy they cycled in, but I'm blanking on right now. Oh, PJ Walker. That's who they put in. They had PJ Walker out there, and it just nothing was clicking. And Flacco comes in and just looks like he's been the guy all along. And like you said, he's passing for unbelievable numbers, and everything's clicking. He's getting the playmakers involved that he should have involved. And I mean, if this team couldn't get scary enough, imagine if they still had Nick Chubb. I mean, just an unbelievable
Right.
team. And
Ben,
and
I
it's
want to hear your
crazy
thought.
too. Go ahead.
No, finish what you're saying because I was going to go in a different direction.
No, you're good. I was just gonna say it's just crazy because this is one of three teams that if everything goes right, this team can still get the 1 seed in the AFC, and it's a bit of a
That
long shot, but it
that
is still
that's
possible.
that's exactly what I was going to say, Ben. I have it pulled up right now. It's a long shot, but it's really not as crazy as it sounds. So I'm gonna read this off right here real quick. Here's what the Browns need to get the number 1 seed in the AFC. So they need to win out. They play the Jets and the Bengals. I think we both agree, by all things considered, very possible that the Browns win out. Would you agree?
Yeah, I'd probably favor them in both those.
So Jets Bengals. So they need the Ravens to lose out. Now this is probably the hardest one, but look, the Ravens play the Dolphins. That's a very losable game. And the Ravens play the Steelers, who the Steelers they beat the Ravens already this season. The Steelers have a thing. That's a division rivalry. So yes, the Ravens are probably favored, but you're
The
crazy
Steelers
if you don't
always
think the
beat them at
Steelers.
least once. They always
A-
do.
and it's a rivalry game. So you at least got to say, okay, there's a chance. So that's by all things considered possible, maybe not likely. And then they need the Dolphins to beat the Ravens and lose to the Bills. Again, for all those things happen, probably crazy. But if you look at each individual scenario there, Dolphins finish 1-1 with beating the Ravens and losing to the Bills. Ravens lose out and Browns win out. That's all they need. It's very much so possible, which is crazy. It's a lot more likely than you probably thought it was.
Yeah, I still think it's very much a long shot, but considering like some of these other crazy scenarios where you need like three teams to like tie or you need this team to lose by this amount of points, like it's not as crazy, but this is still I mean it is a bit of a long shot, but I think it's just crazy that there are 2 weeks left in the season and we are like there is still like a genuine mathematical chance that the Browns could be the 1 seed in the AFC.
I
Like that
know
should
it's
not be
awesome.
possible. Yeah,
And,
that should
and
not be possible.
and I don't want any hate on Flack. I don't care if he loses out and loses in the first round of the playoffs. What he did to this team was had everything there except the quarterback. What he's doing right now at this stage in his career is I don't know if we have ever seen anything like it before. It's incredible. So I want to ask you this hypothetically. Let's just say the Browns run the table and the Browns win the Super Bowl with Joe Flacco as the quarterback. Well, no, I'm just gonna stick with the one. Is Joe Flacco a Hall of Famer if he wins another ring with the Browns? Let's say he gets Super Bowl MVP.
Probably. I don't know. I mean, I think the criteria for Hall of Fame is kind of like lowered as the years go on, but probably. I mean, he had a long enough career and he won 2 Super Bowls and 2 Super Bowl MVPs in that scenario.
That's a fact that's possible is absurd. And now we're saying like, what do the Browns do next year? Regardless of how they do in the playoffs, I mean, they spent all this money in
Well,
Deshaun Watson, so he has to be the starter, right? He has to.
yeah, and I mean, how old's Flacco? I mean, he's not going to
39, I
be.
think.
Yeah, I mean, he's not going to be here forever. I mean, this is probably
I don't know,
Flacco's like last hurrah.
I guess. I mean, man, if he runs the table, he might think, man, I may have more in me than I thought. But again, if this is a great send off, I think no matter what happens from this point, I think he's already submitted. This is a great way to go out, no matter what happens.
Oh, I mean, definitely one of those teams that I would not mind that would win, as long as it's not my Dolphins.
Well, that's funny. I mean, that's actually not a good segue. We're gonna get to that in a second. We don't spend a whole lot of time on this, but it's very interesting. Um, the Jacksonville collapse. I'm calling it because the Jags were looking so good at one point. They were like the 2 seed in the AFC, I think, at one point, and now they're just completely falling off a cliff. It seemed like T Law got injured. He's back now, not 100%, but ever since he got injured, it seems like the whole team, even defensively, is just crumbling. And the Bucks, they put a 30-piece on him, won this game handedly, was not close at all. I know the Bucks have been playing really good, but I don't know if this is more about how good the Bucks played or how bad the Jacksonville Jaguars played. I'm more leaning towards the latter in Jacksonville, hence the headline I put on the graphic. This Jacksonville team is starting to look like perhaps one and done potential in the playoffs.
Yeah, this Jacksonville team has now lost 4 straight. At one point, they were 8-3, and now they're 8-7. I mean, those records are much, much different. It just seems like everything's going wrong for them. I mean, you talked about T-Law going down. It just seems like the team has kind of just been ever since that happened. And even though T-Law's been out there, it just seems like whether it's the offense itself has been playing bad or the defense is kind of starting to hit a weird stride now where they're not playing so great. Just, you know, technically there is a scenario where Jacksonville falls out of the playoffs with how
Well,
good with how good the rest of the division has been.
it's a three-way tie for first place right now between the Jags, the Colts, and the Texans. Now, Jags do have the tiebreaker, but all it takes is one more slip off for one of these teams to win, and they're out of first place. They can drop potentially to third place in after this week. I mean, it's a three-way tie. It's pretty much any man. This the playoff race this year is absurd. It really is. It really. I mean, this is what the NFL wants for ratings, for views. They want as many teams in as possible, but this is just on a whole nother level. 3 teams tied for first place after 16 weeks of football. I mean, it's just so incredibly unlikely.
Yeah, I mean, there's 2 divisions that are kind of in that same spot with the NFC South as well. That there is still a legitimate shot that 3 teams could win that division, and that's crazy. That is absurd.
I don't really have a whole lot more to add here. I mean, I think the Bucks. I talk about a bit briefly with the Falcons, but I think the Bucks have kind of cemented themselves as probably the overall best team, at least in terms of the eye test. But I mean, that's really all I got to add. I wasn't really super impressed by the Bucks, just given how bad the Jacksonville Jaguars played overall. I mean, I'll give my props to Baker Mayfield. I mean, he's really reviving his career in Tampa Bay, and I think he's more than earned another year as a starting quarterback there.
Yeah, I think I just saw something that there is mutual interest for him to come back. For me, I still, like you said, I think he at least deserves another shot. I think they need a little bit more help. On both sides of the ball, they need a little bit better of a run game, and it seems like the Mike Evans has been there, but even Chris Godwin kind of isn't the same as he used to
They're
be.
kind of
And
just holding on to what was left of that Tom Brady run, just trying to get
right,
as much left of it as they can, is what I'm kind of seeing.
yeah, I agree 100%. And that the roster needs a little bit of retooling. But yeah, give Baker another shot, and it seems like the guys are rallying behind him.
100%. Well, Ben, I think it's time we talk about what I think we would all say was the game of the week. The Dolphins versus the Cowboys, the bowl of teams that can't beat good teams. Well, something was bound to give, and the Dolphins get the job done in the Josh Sanders legacy game.
Jason Sanders.
Or sorry, yes, Jason Sanders. My apologies. I can't mess up the name after the performance he gave. Ben, I'm just gonna hand you the floor here because I know you have a lot of thoughts. I'm not even gonna waste the viewers' time with giving my analysis right now because I know they want to hear what you gotta say. So Ben, what did you think? The Miami Dolphins, it's been a long time coming for them to win a big time matchup. I know we were texting right after the game, so I know what you're probably about to say, but the floor is yours, my friend.
Yeah, I was just really impressed with this game. I know, the Dolphins have had their woes against these good teams, and it just seemed like from start to finish that they were just prepared. A lot of times when the big thing for the Dolphins is that they usually show up in these big time games, usually about in the third quarter, and they don't start, they don't start strong and finish strong. It's either they start strong and fall off at the end, or usually is they don't start playing until late in the game. And it just from first quarter to fourth quarter, they just played a solid game, and it just felt like they were always in control from the start. And they had a couple, bumps in the road with, they couldn't stop CeeDee Lamb early, but they kind of shut him down in the second half. The offense was kicking field goals at first, but they got in the end zone once or twice, and it just they didn't even play their best game. I thought they left a lot out on the table, but they got the job done. I mean, Jason Sanders had to kick 5 field goals, which I don't know if he's kicked 5 field goals all year. I mean, I mean, this was very an unusual win for what the Dolphins are used to, but I mean, it was a good team win. I mean, I was impressed with all three phases of football against a really good Dallas team that's been pretty red hot besides the Buffalo game. But they've been
I
they've
was
been pretty good team.
I was impressed as well. I mean, Dallas is one of the best teams in the National Football League. What I thought this game came down to is the Dolphins made less mistakes than the Cowboys did. Sure, they didn't play their best game, but they played a more a they made less mistakes. They played an overall better game than the Cowboys. I think 100%. I mean, the Dallas Cowboys on that opening drive, they drive down the field and they're handing it off to their backup fullback who hasn't getting carries all year. They fumble at the goal line, and Dolphins take advantage. They get some points. Sure, you like to see a couple of those field goals be touchdowns instead, but overall they do what they had to do to put themselves in a position to win. And against an opponent like Dallas, that's all you can do. If you're in the game against an opponent, I mean, this is like these are two juggernauts going at it. If you are just competitive in the game and doing what you got to do to give yourself a chance to win, that's all you can ask for. I mean, and Tyreek Hill, the focal point of this offense, he was quiet in the first half. In the second half, he starts to get involved, and that's kind of see when I saw Dallas kind of start going onto the ropes when Tyreek Hill was starting to gain separation. The Cowboys defense was starting to have to play back more, and the Dolphins were using the playbook. Tua had a great drive down the field at late in the game to secure the victory for Miami. I was very impressed. And I'll tell you what, as an Eagles fan, I was the biggest Dolphin fans ever on Christmas Eve. I was very happy with the result I got there. So, I mean, the Dolphins look good. The Dolphins look good. I don't really have a whole lot of complaints there. They ran the football relatively well. This Dallas defense, um, this is now the second week in a row now where a team has just really ran the ball on them. They did not have an answer. Um, and the last thing I want to talk about here with you, Ben, is this Dallas team on the road. They're now 3-5 on the road, 7-0 home, 3-5 on the road. That equates to a 10-5 record. And given how my Eagles performed, it's more looking likely the Eagles will take the NFC East. I'm gonna knock on wood right here. I'm not sure if that went through on the mic or not, but this Dallas team is going to be on the road in the wild card, which is they can still win the division. I do want to keep that in the universe, but if they are the first wild card and they have to go against a team like the Bucks on the road, I feel like it's on a stretch to say that the NFC South winner has a legitimate shot against a Dallas team that's playing on the road because for whatever reason they just cannot perform like they can at home. It's really bizarre how different the splits are. We see to some extent for a lot of teams, but to have the pendulum be so unbalanced for home and away, it's shocking. It's shocking given the talent of this roster.
Yeah, we talked about it earlier with Buffalo, and I said that they were one of those teams. This is probably the team in the NFL that you can just night and day difference from home on the road. I mean, they just can't do it. And maybe some of it's of who they've played on their own. That obviously matters, but it does make you raise an eyebrow. It really does.
Yeah, it's really bizarre. I mean, I've been waiting for it all year. This the Cowboys. What will go wrong, and this is we see it year after year. Dallas, this is our year, and then the wheels just start slowing down as they get to the finish line. And they're definitely not out of it. This team's too talented to count them out of it. But man, they're reeling. They are reeling. I think that's no doubt. And guess what, Ben? The road does not get any easier next week because they got the Lions on tap.
Yeah, well, and I was just about to bring this up for the Dolphins too. Is they this was their start of their mini gauntlet. Doesn't compare to the gauntlet of what the Eagles went through, but now the Dolphins have a gauntlet themselves. But as you talked about for Dallas, the big thing here is they go right to Detroit, and I think it's is it at home or is it? Do you know? I
It
don't know
is
off the
in
top of my
Dallas.
head.
It is in Dallas.
Right. So I mean that is you gotta have that one. I mean, just for team's sake, for everything for that team, you gotta have that one. But yeah, that is a must-win game. But as for the Dolphins, they go to Baltimore now, and we will get to Baltimore in a little bit. But man, both these teams, it doesn't get much easier.
No, 100%. This was a good win for the Dolphins. The Bills, they're still winning, so they're keeping pace, but the Bills are running out of games. So if the Dolphins can just handle business, they can't even afford to lose to Baltimore. As long as they can take care of business at least against the Bills, they're gonna win that division. They're gonna have a top two seed in the playoffs. And again, the Dolphins with this victory still have a shot at that number one seed. So this was a big time performance in Miami at the Rock. And they did what they had to do. This was a big time victory in prime time. I mean, Ben talked about this all year long because obviously I don't really watch the Dolphins if they're not on prime time. Obviously Ben is. So every time I see the Dolphins in prime time, I'm like, how is this team so good? They finally showed up in prime time in front of a national audience. So I'm sure that also made you very happy, Ben, because for whatever reason this team was just struggling in prime time games up until this point.
Yeah, it made me so mad, especially for Tua, because this was finally a decent game out of Tua from a primetime perspective. It just always seemed like when the lights were bright for Tua, he just wouldn't, he's kind of in that Kirk Cousins thing where you're like, how is this guy, considered so good? Because he just crumbles on a national audience. But Tua is very impressive. But yeah, now the Dolphins control their own destiny. If they win this week, they clinch the division, and then if they win the week after that, they clinch the one seed, no matter what happens. So they control their own destiny. Balls in their court.
Well said, my friend. Well said. Well, Ben, let me just paint the stage for you. It's Christmas Day. I'm rocking the Smitty jersey. I'm at my uncle's house. They're opening gifts, but I'm not in the piano room watching the gift opening. I'm in the living room at the edge of my seat watching the birds as Tyrod Taylor, not Tommy DeVito, which we'll talk about him, is is driving down the field with under a minute to go, and I'm just getting flashbacks of that Seattle loss. I'm like, not again, where we lose to the second quarterback of the game, leading a touchdown drive in the final seconds. But it did not happen. It took maybe a few good no calls by the officials with maybe some potential pass interferences. But all that being said,
Very questionable.
the Philadelphia Eagles win a football game, and I don't care what anybody says against a division rival on a 3-game losing streak, just to get a win for that locker room is massive. Is massive. And I want to talk about this game a little bit because yes, the final score is 33-25, but if you watch this game, the Eagles were night and day the better teams. They gifted them 14 points on a pick six from Jalen, where an O lineman missed their block on a screenplay, and then just an abysmal special teams play where two Eagles players ran into each other. Boston Scott fumbles the football, and the Giants punch in like the next play. They got the ball like inside the 20-yard line. So that's 14 gifted points. I mean, you look at 25 points. The defense played lights out. They only gave up 11 points to the Giants. So if we fix those miscues, this was overall a very good performance from my Birds. What I'm very happy about is they finally just ran the football. I mean, the fan at one point, the fans at Link were chanting, "Run the ball," and the Eagles finally ran the ball. They just handed Swift. I know Boston Scott has this thing against the Giants, and I'm sad that streak ended today. He did not get a touchdown. But like, all right, we're just going to hand the ball to our best ball carrier, and he's going to lead us to victory. And that's what happened. They got Smitty and Brown involved, but this was really just the Eagles running the football just dominantly for the first time in weeks. We finally saw that O-line just come together, run the football dominantly. And if the Eagles can run the football, granted, I know it's the Giants, but when you're on a losing streak, you'll take what you can get. If the Eagles can run the football like that, that's really going to just open up this offense so much, especially given how Jalen Hurts is such a heavy play action passer, even back to his days at Alabama. That's really when he's at his best, when he can run the play action, scramble, use his legs. That's when the Eagles offense is most dangerous. So overall, I was impressed. I know Ben was wondering if I was going to be nervous or not. I'm really not nervous because we just made two, I would say, fluke errors that the Giants cashed in on. If it wasn't for that, this game is a blowout. I was happy, and just to get a win at this point, given the losing streak, it was big. And obviously, after Dallas lost the day before, this was one you needed to get that loss back, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, a win is a win. I do, have some eyebrows raised still for this Philly team. It just seems like they're barely slipping by right now. And I know they just had lost 3 straight, and this could have been 4 very easily. It's been a little bit of a shaky road recently for them. I mean, I saw the signs. The offense was much better in this game than they have been. The defense was pretty special, for the most part. The miscues, like you said, it probably doesn't happen every week, but it does make you scared if it does happen against a good team, because you probably end
Right.
up losing again if this is a good team. So you got to fix those, especially when it comes to playoff time. Usually the team that makes less mistakes in the playoffs usually wins football games. You got to find ways.
No, you gotta find, and I'm still my eyebrows still bad. I don't want to make it sound like I feel like my confidence levels at 100% now. I'm still a little concerned, but I'm not. I don't think I'm as concerned as the average viewer is, or the even average Eagles fan is. I feel pretty good about this win. I think it was just a few fluke plays, but yes, they still have a lot more to prove. I mean, this was against the Giants. I'd still like to see a comfortable 4-quarter complete win. Hopefully they can do that next week against the Cardinals. But I mean, hey, when times are bad, just to get a win, that's what the message was in the locker room. Sirianni, Brandon Graham, he even said it wasn't what we wanted, but we needed a win, and they got the win. So I was satisfied. A win on Christmas, you can never complain with. I was happy with the Birds' performance. And again, these NFC East games are always close. This is a rival. So I know the Giants are a very subpar opponent, but these rivalry games are always going to be a little bit tricky. But I was just happy to see the win. I mean, they needed this. They needed this bad. I needed it bad for my sanity, because my phone was blowing up after that Seattle loss. My phone was blowing up in late in that fourth quarter. But the Eagles, they did what they had to do. They did what they had to do. We'll leave it at that. And the Eagles are undefeated in the Devontae Smith, Kelly Green jersey era when I've worn it. So I just want to throw that into the universe as well.
Yeah, I don't know how long that'll last. Hopefully a while for your sake, but I mean that is going to be a bad superstition if it goes wrong.
Yeah, it will. So let's just leave that. Let's move on to what was probably the most shocking result of the week. This was the last game of week 16 between the Ravens and the Niners. And the Ravens, they are my AFC pick, and they proved me right in this one, because this was just an absolutely impressive victory, and they single-handedly won this one very comfortably. Brock Purdy, he probably pretty much shattered his MVP odds in this one. Just not a good game for our boy Brock. But let's talk about the other quarterback, and you see there on the screen now, MVP Lamar. He's kind of just put himself to the front runner of this MVP race, as he just carved up this Niners defense, put up 33 points on the road on Christmas Day. And I mean, the Ravens, they're looking like the top team in the AFC. I know you're a Dolphins fan, Ben, but I think even you would have to admit that the Ravens, they do look like the top dog right now. I mean, what they did against this Niners team, who was pretty much just rolled through everybody in their path, impressive, I think, would even be an understatement.
Yeah, I mean, this Baltimore team right now is the best team in the AFC and probably the best team in football right now.
Yeah,
I
I'd go
mean,
with football as
this
well.
Yeah, I mean, this was the 2 best teams in football I think everyone was kinda considering, and, we were gonna see what these 2 juggernauts had, and honestly, Baltimore just took care of them pretty handedly. I mean, it didn't really feel like San Fran really had a true chance. I mean, Baltimore just was a better team, and that's, even as a Dolphins fan, that kinda scares me, but which is why I'm somewhat excited for this game on Sunday for them to play the Ravens because I wanna see what they got because of how good this Baltimore team is. But I'll stay to this game. I mean, it was just impressive. Lamar looked very comfortable. I don't think he turned the ball over much, if at all. The run game was the run game, and they finally showed a real weakness to Brock Purdy. I mean, 4 picks. I don't think we've ever seen a game like that from Brock Purdy.
No, that was probably the worst showing of his NFL career.
I mean, he
And
got
that's
benched, didn't he? I mean, he got benched,
well,
or
they're
did he get
saying it's
hurt?
well, okay. So that's what I'm talking about. It's really weird. They ruled him out with a stinger, which is not an actual injury. It's just a term for like when you're like kind of got the wind knocked out of you. So I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I think it was maybe partially bench slash injured, but like stinger is not an injury. I mean, that's just getting hit hard and getting the wind knocked out of you essentially. And Sam Darnold comes in. He ended up throwing a pick, but
Yeah, so I mean, that's 5 picks between the
I
2
don't know. Do we call
quarterbacks.
it bench or do we call it injury? I don't know.
I mean, I think we
Yeah, I
gotta see
mean,
what
so
they
I
do
mean,
this week.
hats off to this. No, definitely have to see what they do this week. Um, I do want to talk about in terms of the MVP. I mean, I still think Christian. I mean, if we're actually talking about in terms of who's the most valuable player, Christian McCaffrey should be the front runner by far. He had another great showing, and he is the most valuable player. I think in all of football, at least in my opinion. I don't know if you would agree with that or not. I just hate how the award has become like the best QB award because, quite frankly, I think Christian McCaffrey and I even know Tyreek Hill got hurt, but I think both of them should at least be in the top three.
Oh, yeah, I mean, if this was a non-quarterback if it was a true most valuable player award, obviously those 2 guys would be at the top. I think the reason we throw quarterbacks in there is because of how valuable the quarterback is to a team, and no one denies that. Um, I think right now, if you base it off, it is probably a quarterback award. Lamar's probably the front runner. I think this game Sunday against Miami is going to be a huge MVP race thing because I think Tua is still somewhat on the outside looking in. But if he has a really good game this week against the Ravens and Lamar
Well,
to clinch, all that.
look at the past MVP winners. They usually just take the quarterback of the best team in the NFL. So if the Dolphins run the table and they're the number one seed, two will probably be a finalist. Because if you look at the past years,
Exactly.
Mahomes, Hurts, it's usually just the number one seed in the NFL. They select the quarterback on that team. That's usually how this turns out.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. Like it's still possible, but right now, I think everyone kind of considers Lamar to be that guy, even though his stats don't really jump out at you. It just seems like this Baltimore team has kind of been the steadily just becoming one of the best teams in football, and it seems like they show up in every big game, like every big time game they've played in this year has they've won, and pretty convincingly.
Convincingly, I agree 100%. Like I said, I picked this team to run the table in the AFC. I got a bird Super Bowl. I got Ravens Eagles. So I mean, it's very much the public. The Ravens are the favorites in the AFC. And are you aware of the whole Super Bowl logo conspiracy thing? Have you heard of this?
Oh, like the colors and the colors of the
Yeah, the
teams.
past 3 years when the NFL has changed the logos, they usually have two primary colors, and the two teams in the Super Bowl have matched the colors. Last year it was Eagles versus the Chiefs, and the logos in the Super Bowl was green and red, and the logos released like at the beginning of the year. The year before that, the logo was yellow and orange, and the Rams and the Bengals made it. This year, the logos purple and red. So a lot of people are saying Ravens Niners. So it's obviously it's just a big coincidence, but it's very interesting as well. Just something I
Hey, I
thought I'd add.
mean, it was kinda crazy when, like, coming into this week, this was the Super Bowl matchup, and there is still definitely a world where the Super Bowl matchup happens,
I
so it
think
is
it's
a
probably
bit.
the most. I'm sure it's probably the most likely if you're going to go to Vegas. I think this is probably the favorite to probably be this role matchup if you were a betting man.
Yeah, these are probably the 2 favorites out of the AFC and NFC, so, I mean, it is very well still much a possibility. If it happens again, I will be raising my eyebrow a little bit.
Yeah, that'd be. I would too. You probably got to be wondering what the heck's going on here. Well, that's gonna be it for our top headlines. We'll move into our other sports headlines, and there wasn't a whole lot, but there was definitely a main one. So I'm just gonna click this button because Yamamoto is a Los Angeles Dodger, and I want to cry inside because the
You're
Dodgers.
telling me, man. You are
Uh,
telling me.
I want to, well, obviously for you, because you're going to be the Dodgers or the Yankees. Yamamoto is a Los Angeles Dodger, and the Dodgers have probably had maybe the best offseason in MLB history. And it's not looking good for my Phillies because now they're going to have to go through LA, it seems. But again, though, the Dodgers have a tendency to always crack in the postseason for whatever reasons. This would be an all time collapse if it doesn't go out for them because they are by all means the favorite to win this. But let's just talk about the signing. What did you think? I mean, I knew it was probably going to be the Dodgers or the Yankees. I knew my Phillies had a very outside chance. Um, I mean, I think just Otani being there is a big factor. Just have somebody of your own culture, just someone you can talk to in your native language, someone that just understands the lifestyle. I think that's a big part in why he chose LA over New York.
Yeah, I mean this one kind of hurt. I don't know. I really did think there was a genuine possibility he was going to end up a Yankee, and I just thought he took kind of the easier route. And I don't blame him for it. I mean, he got the money. I just think for me, it just seemed like he took the easy route. And I don't know. I think he was a better fit for a Yankee than he is a Dodger. And he would have gotten more star, kind of more in the limelight. And he's gonna kind of just be, the sidekick to Otani for the next decade. And it's
Yeah,
like,
he'll be the Robin to his Batman for sure.
yeah, I mean, he's just gonna kind of be the sidekick because everyone's good. I mean, people are gonna still like Yamamoto, but the stadium's gonna go. They're there to watch Otani play, and it's just like it's just good. It's kind of a crazy thing what the MLB is allowing the Dodgers to do, and it's their own fault for not allowing salary cap to be a thing. But this is just getting out of hand. I mean, there's still a possibility they're not done, and that's sad.
No, it is. I mean, Yamamoto's 12-year, 325 million contract with the Dodgers, the richest ever for just a single pitcher. Because obviously Otani, he's a pitcher, but he's also a hitter. Just for a pure pitcher, the richest contract ever in MLB history. This is just probably gonna throw salt in the wood for you. Besting Garrett Cole by $1 million. So he's the highest paid pure pitcher, and this guy's not even thrown a single pitch in the MLB. What a crazy world we live in. He's never thrown a single pitch in Major League Baseball, and he's now the richest pitcher in Major League Baseball. How about that?
Yeah, and it's sad because the Dodgers could care less because they have all the money in the world. And granted, the Yankees did too. I just don't think the Yankees wanted to overpay him. I think that was the big thing here is I don't think the Yankees were going to give him a deal that was hiring Garrett Cole because not only do they just don't believe in that, but talk about bad chemistry. I mean, I can't imagine Garrett Cole would have been happy about that if he just
Garrett
won the
Cole
Cy
probably would have
Young.
been Garrett Cole probably would have demanded a contract reconstruction right then and there.
Exactly. And Garrett Cole just won the Cy Young, and he was about to get outpaid by a guy who never threw a pitch. It's just an unlikely situation. So it kind of made me upset watching this.
I saw a funny meme, a Dodgers fan reaction when they order a hot dog and a soda and the total comes out to $50, and it was like a picture of a guy just looking absolutely PO'd. But that's what it might be because they're in some serious debt. Like I said, it's a Dodgers; they don't care. That's pocket money to them. But let's talk about the salary cap because I mean, baseball's America's pastime. That's been kind of one of the biggest things about the sport. This is a sport where the free markets dominate, but we've never seen it to this extent before. Do you think the MLB does anything about this and perhaps finally changes their rules, which once was people thought was untouchable? Now people are starting to question we might need a salary cap because people, the top markets abused salary cap before, like the Yankees, even the Phillies did it. They were high above the luxury, but it's never been to this extent that the Dodgers are right now, where they spent $1 billion on two players in a 2 week span. Do you think the MLB does something about this? Because I really don't think they will. It kills me to say it, but I think it's so rooted. I mean, obviously they could change. I mean, they had the pitch clock. That's something people never thought would happen either. But I don't know if I see them adding a luxury to their thing because this is good for the MLB. These top teams having all this much star power. This brings viewers' eyes to the sports of their best teams, which is what they want. I don't know if I see them adding a luxury tax or a salary cap. Excuse me. I really don't see it happening.
Yeah, it's tough too because even if you do, how do you restrict it? Because guys are already on contract, so it would be
Right.
probably a decade long fix with how baseball contracts are. You'd have to almost give it a decade for the true effects of it to really be noticed.
I think.
Do I think they should have one? Of course. Will they?
Yeah.
Probably not. I think we're kind of in the same boat in that.
Yeah, I don't think it will either. I think one thing maybe they can do without switching the rules is maybe ban what the Dodgers do with Otani's contract. At least make the payouts a bit better per year. I mean, that's something they can fix like that without eliminating the salary cap altogether. But the fact that Otani is going to be getting paid $2 million a year next year is just blasphemous. I think at least that can be outlawed because I think that just creates too many problems. I think if they don't do anything, we're going to be seeing more contracts like that in the very near future because it just makes too much sense not to do that.
Yeah, I mean, like, why did no one do this beforehand? I saw that and I was like, this is cheating, right? But it's totally legal. I mean, that is a crazy rule exploit that they used.
Hey, credit to the Dodgers thing outside the box. I mean, no one ever thought this was a possibility before something like this happened.
I mean, yeah, you can't you hate the system, not the guy doing it. Like that's not their fault. They're just doing what they're allowed to do. I mean, it is totally in the rules. They're allowed to do it.
Well, let's talk about a team who's on the come up in the Dodgers from a team who's just, I mean, the graphic says it all. I mean, Cade Cunningham's face says it all. The Pistons officially now have the largest losing streak in a season in MLB history with their 27 straight loss to the Brooklyn Nets last night. This is just shocking, Ben, because I'm a Sixers fan, so I can relate to this in the era of the process where the Sixers were just terrible. I mean, I looked at the list, and technically the Sixers still have the largest losing streak at 28. That's because they lost 26 games at the end of the 2016 year. Then they lost two in a row in 2017, so that equates to 28. So 27s in 1 year, so it's still longer. Regardless, in the years of the process, I know what it was like to watch a terrible team, but the difference between the Sixers and the Pistons, where the Sixers, I mean, the players weren't trying to lose, but that roster was assembled for them to lose games to get draft picks. That was the whole thing of the process. They were trying to lose. The Pistons, they're not trying to lose games. They're trying to win. The roster's assembled for them at least to contend and win some games. They're not doing it. And Cade Cunningham, I mean, he played phenomenal. He dropped 40 last night, and it still wasn't enough. And the fans are yelling still. The team, I mean, the fans, I mean, God bless them. I mean, they're still supporting this team as much as they can, but man, it's ugly times in Detroit, and it's been a lot of ugliness ever since the millennium. It seems for Detroit Pistons basketball.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to go with this, and I don't know what's going to happen with this Detroit team. I mean, part of me wonders if this is purposeful. I mean, it almost. I mean, you almost hope it is at this point because it's just kind of confusing. Because, like you said, it didn't like. I kind of thought Detroit was going to be kind of one of those play-in teams this year. I mean, the roster looks really solid. Monty Williams was brought in to be this superstar head coach. I mean, they
Right?
paid him as such. He was a coach of the year once, and I mean, he's been one of the best coaches in the league. It seemed like the foundation was there. It just seems like they're not putting it together, and that's why it makes me wonder if this is purposeful or not. Who knows? But either way, 27 straight is just. I mean, that can't happen. It can't happen if you're trying to lose. If you aren't trying to lose, that is an unbelievable number. And who knows how long this goes? I mean, I don't know where does the ladder end for them.
Well, I think the problem is there's really not a whole lot of veteran presence. A guy to keep it's a mainly young team. It's going to be hard for these players to keep their heads straight with all this media attention they get. I think Jokovic is the veteran presence, and I mean, I already know a whole lot about him, but I doubt he's really connecting to the players outside of the court. Um, they don't really have a lot of veterans to keep these rookies and these young players' heads straight. I mean, I was going to say this can get ugly real quick, but I mean, I think we're already at the point where it's pretty ugly. Does it reach 30? I mean, I hope not. I mean, I feel bad for them. I really do.
Yeah, I mean, I think they play Boston as their next game, so that
Oh
that doesn't
man.
exactly look. They play Boston and Toronto the next two. They do have a game against Houston, so I mean, I guess that's a winnable one. But like, is anything really winnable for them right now?
I don't
I
know.
mean, who
I don't
knows,
know.
man? I mean, this is unbelievable. And they started the season 2-1 too, and that's the funny part. They had a winning record at one point, and now
That
they're
is
two
funny.
and
I didn't know that.
28. Yeah, I mean, they started the season 2-1,
How
and
many?
they had won two out
How,
of three.
are the two wins is all they have right now?
Yeah, it's two and 28. And it's funny
Oh my
because
gosh.
they almost beat the Heat on opening night. They lost by 1 point to the Heat. They could have been 3-0 to start the season, and then everything just started going worse and worse and worse. There, I mean, it's just been getting out of hand, and I mean, you see the potential out of Cade. I mean, if there's one bright side of this team, Cade Cunningham is living up to
And
that first pick.
and there won't be a scapegoat for this. I mean, they invested in Monty Williams. He's going to be here to stay. And I don't really think it's quite frankly his. I mean, I guess to an extent it's his fault, but I mean, I think it's a bit of just bad luck and just I think this the morale is the main point of all of this. I think that's really has been the cause of this is just the morale. Once you get to like 10 or 15 in a row, I mean, you can just kind of feel the vibe in the arena just of how things are going to go. I saw a video of them doing warm ups and it was like 10 straight missed jumpers. I mean, it just seems like the morale has just been destroyed.
Yeah, I mean, these are all professional basketball players, so like, it's not like they forgot how to play basketball. They're just not putting it all together. I mean, there's just a lot wrong with this team, which, like I said, it makes you wonder if it's purposeful, if it's purposeful. Sorry, I can't speak. It makes you
No,
wonder if
you're
it's on purpose because it's. I mean, this is just getting out of hand.
getting hand indeed. I guess we'll keep moving on, but it's always something to keep an eye on. I did not have a graphic for this. I'll let you kind of take the lead on this because I'm not a huge follower of the transfer portal, but it's been blowing up. I do see that every time I log into Instagram. It seems like another guy's on the move, and I think it's just a result of NIL money being a thing now, and they really opened up the transfer portal. What are your thoughts on the transfer portal? Is it good or bad for college? It's more putting a sour taste in my mouth the more I see it being employed.
Yeah, I mean, it is definitely one of the most controversial things in sports right now, and I understand why. For me, I see both sides of the coin. You like to see guys get another shot, especially on a team when they were recruited really highly, and it just seems like another guy kind of shined over them, and the talent's there, but they just don't have enough. There's not enough playing time to go around one team. But also at the same time, with NIL money, you're seeing teams kind of lessen their recruiting out of high school, and now they're just recruiting out of the transfer portal, and they're basically going to guys and saying we can give you this much money from this sponsorship, and we can do this for you. And it's almost becoming a contract negotiation like in the
Yeah,
NFL. I mean, it's
yeah,
it's it's kind of crazy. So, like I said, it's been blowing up. I mean, this has been one of the highest transfer years ever, if not the highest. I mean, there is just guys going left and right to new schools, especially with quarterbacks. I mean, there was an iconic press conference with Matt Rule, the coach of Nebraska, who he was talking about how
yep.
you almost have to pay. I think he said in order to get a top end quarterback, you have to pay at least $3 million right now, and that is what it is right now, and that's a crazy thing that you have to pay for a collegiate athlete.
I
But
think
that's where we're
another
at.
thing, another thing that a lot of people aren't really talking about with this, Ben, are these
What?
players potentially just not declaring for the NFL draft as early as they would. Because if you have a guy on the fence where there may be like a fourth, fifth round talent, why risk it? Get cut by an NFL team where you can just rock it out in college, go to maybe two classes, be like the superstar on campus and get paid millions of bucks, go to a class or two and still live the college life while still making millions of dollars. I mean, it seems like a no brainer. Just if you're not like maybe a first or second round talent and you're more of a day two, day three guy, just rock it out at college, be the man of the hour on campus, get a class or two, make millions of dollars, and that's that. I think it's gonna start affecting how stacked NFL draft classes are as well, and rightfully so. I mean, look at a guy like Kyle McCord who gets cut at Ohio State and goes to Syracuse of all things. You know, a lot of money was involved in that decision. I refuse to believe Syracuse was just the best program that offered him a job. I think it's more just Syracuse had that money for him. And I think his
Yeah, I
dad played there
mean,
as well. I think.
right. I mean, there's a bit of backstory there, but I mean, I think a lot of it, like you said, was probably money based. Um, you do kind of wonder with all this stuff. I mean, it makes you raise an eyebrow. I don't know. I mean, you kind of said
We
it
we need
best.
a we need to raise an eyebrow counter. How many times we dropped that line today? Because there's a lot of eyebrows being raised at the bottom line today.
Yeah, we are slowly learning our Dwayne Johnson one eyebrow raise.
I mean, any final thoughts on the transfer portal? I mean, it's just going to keep being. It's just I don't want to say it being exposed, but I think it's just as time goes on, more and more players are going to keep using it. Real quick, while we're on the talk of college, we talked about last week. Just a refresher since the big bowl games this weekend. You're taking Alabama and Washington, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I mean, props to the committee because both those games seem like such coin flips right now. I definitely like the Alabama over Michigan. I know that's not gonna hear you're not gonna like to hear that. I just don't think that Michigan is really on that level, and I know they've played as such, but this Alabama team is red hot right now, and they look like the best team in college football. Um, I will say the Washington Texas game is like about as a 50-50 as I can think of. I mean, I can think of 16 different scenarios in my head where both teams win that game. Who knows? But I think I like Washington just because I like the experience of Penix in the big games. But that's about it.
Yes, that's fine. We have two different matchups. I got Michigan, Texas, and you have Alabama, Washington. And it's funny because I think we'd both agree that both of our predictions are very much so possible, which is usually not what we're saying in the college football playoff. We usually at least know one team of the four. It's definitely at least going to move on to the championship. And this year, I think you can make a case for all four teams to an extent.
Yeah, 100%. Like I said, good send off in the for the four team in the sense of the two matchups. It's great matchups.
And real quick, I know we talked about last week for the bowl games. I think, I mean, I'm scared for Florida State. I'm terrified for Florida State. That I'll just leave it
Well,
at
they
that.
just announced that Wanamaker's not going to play, so it's going to be Brock Glenn again. So, I mean, yeah, I can't wait to watch that game.
Oh man, I think Georgia's just gonna prove the committee right. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I mean, there is nothing else to say. I would if there's a spread for Georgia, I'm going to take the over. They're going to cover that spread.
I would agree with that. So the only last thing to do here is do our NFL Week 17 predictions. We'll just start this right off. Our first game of the week is Jets at the Browns. Cleveland a 7-point favorite at home. We talked about earlier the Browns. They still have a path to the number one seed. They still have a lot to play for. And I think Flacco Mania is going to survive another week. I got the Browns win this one. I think they're going to win it comfortably, just given what's at stake here for both teams.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is a good keep not get right game, but they gotta stay right. It's
Keep
kind of
right.
one of
Yeah,
those.
stay
Yeah, I
right.
mean it's a stay right game. Just a really struggling team, but and a team that's continuing to play well. Just play your game. Let Flacco do his thing. Let the defense do their thing against a very struggling Jets offense. Just
The
do what you got to do. Win the game.
the Cowboys gauntlet will continue. They're at home against Detroit. They are undefeated at home. They are a 6-point favorite, but I'm rocking with those Lions. This might be a bit more of an emotional pick, but actually, I saw online that if you're an Eagles fan, you should be rolling for Dallas just because Detroit's tied with us right now. If we win out, we're gonna beat Dallas anyway. But screw that. I just like seeing Dallas lose, and I'm watching Dallas crumble. So give me the Lions on the road in a shocker. I think that locker room's on cloud nine. So you could make the argument there. They don't really have a lot to play for, but they do. I think the excitement from their first ever division title is going to carry over to one more week. I think they shock the Cowboys at home, and then if they lose this one, it's going to be fireworks in Dallas. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I have this going the other way. I don't know. I think the picking the Cowboys at home is just a safer pick.
Do you
I
think
think there's
6 points
no
is a big
way.
spread though? I was shocked at the six
Um,
point spread.
I don't know. Detroit always doesn't really show up in these big games. I feel like every time Detroit plays a top tier team, they don't really show up as well. Cowboys are always, I mean, they haven't lost yet at home, so that probably gives you a 3 or 4 point spread to begin with. And I think
That's
Dallas
fair.
is a better team. I mean, I do. And that's no
Oh,
shade
I
at Detroit.
I agree. Dallas is a better team. I really just want to see them lose. So it's a bit more of an emotional pick, but I think it's very much possible Detroit can win this. I think it's not
Oh,
outside the realms of
100%. I mean,
possibility
these
at
are
all.
two good teams going at it for sure. I mean, it's no, Detroit is no, scrub. I mean, they are a top tier football team, but I think the Cowboys win this one. Not by a lot though. This will be a close game.
Pats at Bills. Bills a 12-point favorite. That is not the big spread of the week. The second biggest spread of the week. The Pats we didn't talk about it just because there wasn't really there's so many other notable games. The Pats they did beat the Broncos and Bailey Zappi looked pretty good as a starter, but I don't think you'll be able to replicate that performance, especially since this is at Buffalo. Buffalo, we talked about it earlier in the show. They're just such a dangerous team at home. I got the Bills win this one. I think we'll have a much more complete performance than they showed against the Chargers.
I have the Bills winning this, but I don't think it'll be. I think the 12 point is going to get covered by the Pats. I really think this is going to be a close game. I just don't think Belichick's going to let him have this so easily. I think there's a bit of pride there still for Belichick. Kind of give him one last hurrah. I don't think Belichick has it in him to just roll over. And this Pats team looked really good last week when they had no business even trying to win that game. and they looked good against Denver, and
They
I think
did.
Denver is kind of on an upward trend too. So I think this game will be closer than that spread, but still give me the Bills.
Falcons at Bears. Bears at home, 3-point favorites against the Falcons. I'm going to go against spread here. Give me Atlanta. They had probably their best showing of the season last week. They still have a whole lot to play for. The Bears could easily win this one, though. This one was a tough pick for me. I'm rocking with the Falcons just because they just have more to play for right now. I mean, the Bears are all but eliminated. I don't think mathematically they've been eliminated yet, but they're essentially all but eliminated. I'm going to take the Falcons, but would not shock me at all because you just never know what Falcons team you're going to get. If the Falcons of last week don't show up, the Bears are probably going to win this game. But I'm going to hope that the Falcons of last week do show up and that they get a tough road win against the Bears. I think this one will be close for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I was kind of surprised that Chicago was a favorites. Obviously they're at home, so that helps a lot. But yeah, I'm gonna take the Falcons as well. But this was a kind of a coin flip game. I didn't feel comfortable about that pick.
Raiders at Colts. Colts a 3-point favorite at home. Colts in a tough battle for first place in their division. Raiders coming off a huge win against their division rival. I'm going to rock with the Colts in this one. They've been playing some really good football. It's hard for me to imagine losing 2 weeks in a row. And I just think if they just game manage their way to victory, I don't think Aiden O'Connell is going to be able to outduel Gardner Minshew in this one. I think with Jonathan Taylor, I think that just is a bit too much firepower for the Raiders to handle. I don't think their defense replicates that performance they had against Kansas City. Give me the Colts, but again, I think this will be another very close game. I mean, only a 3-point spread. I think it could be very, very close to what the final score might be.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of assume that since how high the Raiders were this past week, they're probably not going to replicate that high of a performance. Then again, they have put up 63 recently, so who really knows? I mean, maybe this Raiders team just continues this Cinderella run. But I think the Colts kind of bring them back to life a little bit and then win this game, but not comfortably, like you said. I think this Raider teams is really competitive.
Rams at Giants, our next game. Rams in the mix of a playoff hunt. We didn't really talk about the Rams, but I mean, right now I can pull it up real quick here in the NFC. I'm pretty sure the Rams have a playoff spot right now. Let me look at wild card. That is the MLB standings, not the NFL standings. It's not going to give me the information I'm looking for. Here we go. Playoff, yeah. In the NFC, yeah, the Rams are the 6th seed right now. So they're only behind Dallas. So they're very much so in a playoff race against the Giants. They are on the road, but they are 6-point favorites on the road. I'm rocking with the Rams. I just don't see them losing given the stakes. And you are going in another direction on this one?
Yeah, I don't know. I liked what I saw out of the Giants this past week. I thought they were very, like, all things considered, were pretty impressive against a Philly team on the road on Christmas. That stadium was rocking, and they kept it very comfortable. Like they had a legitimate shot to at least go for a touchdown and try to tie the game with clock, like with the time expiring on Christmas Day. Like I felt good with what the Giants gave the Eagles, considering the circumstances. And this Rams team is not nearly as good as the Eagles, and it's at their home stadium. I don't know. Just this was just a gut feeling.
We forgot to talk about. We'll make it really quick, but are you sad that DeVito Mania is over? Tommy Cullen era is probably over in New York. I enjoyed it while it was fun while it lasted.
I
It was a
mean,
very quick run, but I was a little sad, man. I mean, it was. I mean, even as an Eagles fan, I mean that was an incredible storyline.
well, I mean, it's the year of the backup quarterback, but it is funny because all these backup quarterback stories kind of get brought back to life. They go on these quick 3 to 4 game runs, and then they get brought back to life. I mean, we it seems like just yesterday it was the Joshua Dobbs area, and look how that's panned out. So, I mean, you can never really truly know with these backup quarterbacks. But yeah, I mean, the Tommy DeVito era is probably over. I don't even know if he'll start this week.
And I think Tyrod Taylor probably earned the start by getting the Giants back into that game and almost stealing a victory. Cardinals at Eagles is the next one. Eagles 10.5-point favorites. I got the Eagles by big in this one. I think we're finally going to see that homecoming performance we've all been looking for. We almost had against the New York Giants, who made a couple just rather stupid mistakes. I think we could have those mistakes. I think we win this one big. I think we're going to cover that 10.5. I got the Eagles by at least 2 touchdowns here.
Yeah, I have the Eagles by a large margin, probably around that 10.5, point, spread. It's a really good spread, like probably 10 to 14, but this is going to be a comfortable win. I don't think the Cards really have a shot in this.
Yeah, and I think the Eagles have been looking for just a true, just dominant performance. I think they'll get it. Let's hope I'm right. Next up, Saints at Bucks. This is actually arguably maybe the game of the week, just given what's at stake here. 3-point fate.
No,
You
not
don't.
not not The Dolphins
Not
Ravens is the game of the
not
week.
not the game of the week, but I think it's a top three matchups in terms of stakes. I'll give it that, just because there's a
Yeah, probably
lot.
top three.
So I picked the Saints to win the division at the beginning on when we were back on WSYC 88.7. But at some point, you just gotta accept that you're wrong. I think the Bucks have proven they are the best team in this division. Baker Mayfield's playing some good football. Saints have just kind of been just very inconsistent and just kind of just going through the motions throughout this year. They can very much so win this game, but I'm gonna rock with the Bucks. Kind of hurts me to do it, but I think the Bucks are a better team than the Saints, and I'm going to pick the better team in this one, especially given the Bucks are at home.
I went with pure home field. I think this whole division is such a coin flip. I feel like there's no true number one team. I mean, I see all three teams kind of in the same tier. I know you kind of have the Bucks on a slightly higher tier, but really for me, there's no true number one team. I just
I
think
mean,
they're all kind of meh.
I'm saying the Bucks are C plus, and Falcons and Saints are C.
Okay, so it's not much of a difference, but I mean, yeah, I kind of just took the home team here, and I mean, just give me the Bucks, I guess. I don't know.
I respect it. Niners at Commanders. I picked the Commanders 2 weeks in a row now. I thought they were for sure at least going to win another game, but now it's not looking likely as they lose to the Jets on a walk-off field goal last week. This is the largest spread of the week, 13.5. After the Niners lost, I think this one's going to get ugly quick. I think the Niners are going to I think this is kind of like when you're at a boxing match, like a top champ, like loses a tough one, so then he goes against a nobody and he just knocks him out in the first round. I think this one's going to get ugly quick. I got the Niners by big, maybe even by 20 plus.
Yeah, I mean, this is the you know perfect example of a get right game. I mean, this is about as get right of a game as it gets. I mean, this one could get out of hand real quickly. Give me the Niners by a large margin as well.
Real quick, here's my prediction. Bieniemy is going to get fired this offseason. He's going to rejoin Kansas City because it looks like they're both missing each other right now. That's such that I'm just throwing that out there. I meant to talk about that when we talked about Kansas City, but I'm saying it now. Bieniemy's rejoining the Chiefs this offseason. You heard it here first. You heard it here
I
first.
mean, that is a bold prediction, but it is very well possible considering both of those circumstances.
Panthers at Jags. Jags only a 7-point favorite at home against the Panthers. Kind of shows you how they've been tanking. I mean, if it's not now, it's never for the Jags in terms of getting right. If they need to win this one, not only do they need to win it, but they need to win it comfortably for their sanity. If they just squeak by, I don't even think I think it's a moral loss. I think the Jags will finally get right. I think they're gonna win this one, probably around maybe 10 points, maybe. If they don't get this one though, then I think it's all but over for them.
Oh, I mean, this is about as must win as it gets for the Jags. Like you said, this is a very bad Panthers team. You got to find a way to win, and like you said, probably comfortably to make you feel good about it.
Dolphins at Ravens. Ben, this is the game you've been waiting for. We're gonna find it. Well, I don't even say we're gonna see what the Dolphins are made of. We saw they're made of against Dallas. This is
No, no,
really
no.
a
I
true
think
fun.
this is a different. This is truly what they are made of. Is no disrespect to Dallas, but
I
Baltimore is
think a
on
good.
another tier.
I think Dallas is the midterm, and this is like the final.
Yeah, I agree 100%. This is really what you're gonna see. What you got out of them. Do I think they're gonna probably win? No, I still took them for my own home sake.
Oh,
I
come on! You don't think they're gonna win?
It's not even a shade at the Dolphins. This game might be close, but I just this Baltimore team
Oh,
looks unbeatable. I mean, I want them to win. Do I think they can win? Of course. This is a really talented Dolphins team, and I still see a shot where they end up in the Super Bowl. I mean, this is as good of a Dolphins team as I've ever seen, and this team has a legitimate shot to make a run. I just think right here, right now, I probably take the Ravens at home. Probably. I mean,
I'm
it's
I'm so upset. This is a 1 o'clock kick. I really thought this game was gonna get flexed, but it's not
Well,
gonna happen.
the problem is it's New Year's Eve. They had talked about flexing it, but downtown Baltimore does a big New Year's Eve thing,
Oh,
and
okay, okay.
traffic would be terrible. By the time this game would get, the end of the game would be about 11 o'clock, which would be like if it was a Sunday night game, it'd be madness on
Okay, so I know that's why.
on
Okay,
that.
so I'm glad they wanted to. They just couldn't because of circumstances. Because this has prime time written all over it. So I'm glad they wanted to. They just couldn't. Okay, that makes me feel a lot better because if it wasn't for that, there's no reason it should be a 1 o'clock kick. But I'm gonna rock with the Ravens. They're the juggernaut on the AFC. They're my AFC pick. I can't go against them. But I think I do see a world where the Dolphins can win this. I mean, the Ravens, they've been very inconsistent. They always play up and down as their opponent. They've been on a roll lately, but I mean, the Ravens also have a tendency to just crack under the pressure. Now, no one was really talking about it. Everyone was kind of just their eyes were on the 49ers. Now, all the eyes are on Baltimore. So it wouldn't shock me if the Dolphins won, but I am going to pick the Ravens.
Yeah, I mean, you said it pretty well, honestly.
Titans at Texans are our next one. Houston 3.5-point favorite. Texans, they've kind of been slumping with Case Keenum as their quarterback. I think Stroud might be able to be back finally for this one. And I thought the Texans were going to fall off a cliff, but since the Jags kind of fell off a cliff at the same time, the Colts have slumped a little bit as well. The Texans are still in the mix of anything. I think the Texans are going to win this game. I don't see them losing 3 straight, especially if Stroud plays. We're in a world where the Texans might actually find a way to win this division.
Yeah, and I hope they do. I love the story. Like you said, if Stroud needs to come back for this team. I mean, he's kind of the life of this team. It seems like. I mean, just a night and day difference to what they were when he was out there versus when he's not out there. I got the Texans as well. I don't know why the Titans have this much of a spread. I mean, I know they've been kind of hot recently, but I don't know if they have much to play for.
So we're both predicting the Texans, the Colts, and the Jags all win. So if we're correct, we're gonna have a 3-team race, so we're all tied going into week 18. Just for the drama, I really want that to come true. Next game we got Steelers at Seahawks. It's at Seattle. Seattle 3.5-point favorite. I'm going with the Steelers in this one. They had their best showing of the year last week. Mike Tomlin, he has a 500 record to keep up. I think history just leans towards the Steelers in this one. If they can just play any close to how they did against the Bengals, they're going to win this game. I think the Steelers are going to do it, Ben. I know it's probably not what you wanted to hear, but give me the Steelers. I'm feeling good about this one for whatever reason.
I cannot stand the Steelers team, and I will once again. I refuse to pick them, no matter what. Give me the home favorite here. Give me Seattle. I just can't. I can't see the Steelers team playing well once again. And I gave them the props, but their props is over. Give me the Seahawks. Just me being me.
Hey, this is a big game for both these teams. There's 2 wild card teams looking to get another win to boost their playoff chances. This is a very important game for both Steelers and Seattle. Next up, Chargers at Broncos. Denver, they were on that incredible winning streak, and now they're starting the brakes are starting to hit. But they have a chance to get back on track here and try to get that Patriots game was one they really needed. But they still have a chance to right the wrong against the Chargers. And I'll tell you what, Ben. You said it earlier. I think I'm finally going to say it now. The Chargers are going to charge, and the Broncos are going to win this game.
Hey, if there's any team to get right against, it's the Chargers because no matter what, they'll charge it for you. They'll take care of it for you.
Bengals at Chiefs. Kansas City a 7-point favorite at Arrowhead. Chiefs coming off a terrible performance, maybe the worst performance all year against their division rival in the Raiders. I got the Chiefs to win this one, but I'll tell you what, Ben. I don't think it's going to be a vintage Chiefs game. I think they're just going to squeak by against the Bengals. I'm not expecting an impressive Chiefs performance. They've given me no reason to think why they would turn things around. I got the Chiefs close.
Part of me thinks this might be that vintage like Chiefs get right, like, oh crap, here's the Chiefs. This could be that moment because it always happens. I mean, we've seen it time and
I
time
just don't.
again.
I just don't see the Bengals defense getting lit up for 2 weeks in a row. That was my thinking for.
Yeah, I mean that's a very good Cincinnati defense. So you might be right on that. Like I said, it just worries me because is this a different year for the Chiefs? Maybe, but like we've talked about this so many times. We're just waiting for the inevitable. It's almost like you're kind of on your edge of the seat, kind of waiting for them to hit that form that they always do. Who knows? I'm taking the Chiefs, but like it could go either way. But like I say either way in the sense of how close it is. But give me the Chiefs no matter what.
I agree with what you said there. In our last game, Packers at Vikings, division rivalry. For me, this was the hardest game to predict. This was a coin flip game. I ended up taking the Packers, but I mean, if you want to take the Vikings, sure. I mean, I was really going either way. Give me the Packers. I haven't picked them in a few weeks. Why not? This was a true 50-50 for me.
Yeah, this was a pretty much 50-50 for me too. Division rivalries are always 50-50. I took the Vikings. I just felt, I don't know, like gut feeling. Like you said, it was pretty down the middle for me. So it's hard to really pick this one.
Jordan Love over Nick Mullins, I guess, but I think the Vikings overall have the better rosters. I mean, I don't know. I mean, like you said, this is a 50-50, but that's going to do it for our picks. That's going to do it for another episode of The Bottom Line, if my graphic will work. There we go. Hey, another good show, Ben. Like I said, I really enjoy this new format where you don't have to be on a time crunch. We can spend more time talking about stuff. I'm really enjoying it. And I really appreciate the the small but growing audience we are already building. So shout outs to all the viewers who are still watching us at the hour 30 mark. Y'all are the real MVPs. But Ben, I'm glad you had a good Christmas with your people. It's always a fun time doing this with you. Any final words before we sign off?
Not really, just excited to watch my Dolphins this week. I mean, like we talked about, just truly a test. Like this is what I want to see what they're made of. Even if they don't win it, I just want to see them be competitive because that's a really really good Baltimore team at their best right now. Find a way. I don't know. Find a way to win, and I will be on cloud nine.
Real quick, I'm putting Ben on the spot here real quick. We're recording this at 10 a.m. on Wednesday. This is going to drop at 6 p.m. In 1 hour's time, Ben's coming in to his workplace at Olive Garden. Ben, real quick, just to end the episode, what's the best meal on the Olive Garden menu? Go.
Oh man, on the spot. I don't know. I think for
There is
me
a right answer
personally,
here. There is a right answer.
see, I got to go with the reliable chicken Alfredo. Now, it sounds crazy, but it's reliable. It always gets the job done. Now, I do think the carbonara is a good one too. Now, it's a little bit of a modernized, Alfredo with some bacon in it,
Yeah.
but that is probably my two go-tos.
Nah, tour of Italy, 100%. A little bit of everything. You can't go
Oh,
wrong.
that's a good one, but it's so expensive, and I'll even say that as an
It
employee.
is.
I will not spend the extra money to get all that food, and that's so much food. For me, it's like I don't know. I don't really like the lasagna that much, so it's kind of you know.
Oh no! Oh, not nope. We're ending the episode there. That's criminal. That we might have to do an Olive Garden special or something because I can't have you blasphemy on the lasagna. One of the best dishes there, easily a top five. Ben, we had a good episode. You really hear me with that one. That's gonna do it for the bottom line. I'm just kidding. I'm not a lasagna guy. I am a lasagna guy. I mean, I guess to each their own, but I don't know about that one, my man.
Hey, Alfredo's my go-to, and Alfredo is very unique at Olive Garden. It might not be the best, but it is unique.
Hey, Alfredo does slap, so maybe we'll have an Olive Garden special. I might have to be in the card, but for now, that's gonna do it for the bottom line. He's Ben Willey. I'm Jay Dorazio. Like, share, subscribe, hit all the buttons on the screen because it helps us out a ton. And hey, we'll be back next week at Wednesday. I think me and Ben, we might even try to do a little special here soon. We're trying to incorporate maybe getting a few more episodes out a week. So stay tuned for one of those potentially. If not, then you can definitely count us recording next Wednesday at 6 p.m. here on the bottom line for more visual enhancements. Maybe we'll have some cameras so you can see our beautiful faces, maybe even in the near future. So stay tuned for that. But with all that being said, we're signing off. We'll see you soon, guys.